last message. Lynn Merrick wiped the dust from her hands and smiled at the sunset, painting Nutera Prime's sky in shades of orange and purple. Another day finished. Another harvest cycle closer to completion. She stood outside the engineering depot, watching farmers guide their machines across golden fields that stretched toward distant mountains. This world had been her home for 23 years, the only life she really knew. Her father used to say Nutera Prime was the safest place in the galaxy. Too far from anything important. Too small to matter. Just families and fields and quiet nights under unfamiliar stars. 127 years without trouble. 127 years of peace. Lynn locked the depot door and started walking home along the dirt road. Children played in the yards of simple houses. Neighbors called greetings. Old Mr. Chin sat on his porch, smoking his pipe and telling the same stories he told every evening. Everything felt permanent, like it would last forever. She reached her small house just as the first stars appeared. Her younger brother Marcus was already inside, heating dinner on the stove. He grinned when she entered. "You're late again," he said. "Always working." "Somebody has to keep the water pumps running," Lynn replied, dropping into a chair. "If I don't maintain them, everyone complains when their showers stop working." Marcus laughed and served 2 plates of vegetables and synthesized protein. It wasn't fancy food, but it was honest. They ate together like they did every night, talking about small things. Marcus mentioned a girl he liked. Lynn teased him. Normal life. Simple life. After dinner, Lynn stepped outside to look at the stars. She did this often, wondering about Earth. The homeworld was 42 light-years away, almost impossibly distant. Communications took decades. The last message from Earth had arrived when Lynn was a child, just a brief update saying everything was fine, keep farming, stay safe. Nothing since. Sometimes Lynn wondered if Earth even remembered them. She was about to go back inside when she saw something wrong in the sky. A bright flash like lightning, but different. Then another. And another. Her engineering mind immediately started analyzing. Those weren't natural. Those were explosions. Marcus came outside. "What's happening?" Before Lynn could answer, the emergency sirens began wailing across the colony. Every house, every street, every building screamed the same warning. Danger. 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 Lynn's handheld communicator buzzed with frantic messages. The orbital station was gone. Destroyed. Unknown ships were descending through the atmosphere. The colony administrator was shouting confused orders. Nobody understood what was happening. Then the sky opened. Massive ships appeared through the clouds, black metal things covered in sharp angles and glowing red lights. They were enormous, blocking out the stars. Lynn had never seen anything like them. Nutera Prime had no military, no defenses. They had never needed any. The ships opened fire. Beams of superheated plasma tore through the colony's buildings. The school exploded into flames. The medical center collapsed. The marketplace where Lynn bought supplies every week simply vanished in a flash of white heat. People were screaming, running in every direction, but there was nowhere to go. "Marcus, run!" Lynn shouted, grabbing her brother's arm. They sprinted down the road as plasma fire rained from above. Houses behind them erupted into fireballs. Mr. Chen's porch where he told his stories was simply gone, erased. All around them, Nutera Prime was dying. They ran toward the edge of town where the ground rose into hills. Lynn's mind raced through possibilities. Who were these attackers? Why were they doing this? What did they want? None of the answers made sense. Nutera Prime had nothing valuable. Just farms. Just people. An explosion threw them to the ground. Lynn's ears rang. She tasted blood. When her vision cleared, she saw smaller craft landing in the fields. Armored figures emerged, tall and insectoid, carrying weapons. They moved through the fleeing colonists like hunters, firing at anyone who ran. Marcus pulled Lynn behind an overturned farm vehicle. "We have to hide," he said, his voice shaking. But Lynn was staring at something else. The communications array on the hill. It was still standing, still powered. The attackers hadn't destroyed it yet. Maybe they didn't know what it was. "I have to send a message," Lynn said. "What?" "No, we have to survive." Lynn grabbed her brother's shoulders and looked him in the eyes. "If nobody knows what happened here, they'll do this to other colonies. Earth has to know. Someone has to tell them." Marcus's face went pale, but he nodded. He understood. They crawled through the burning colony, moving from cover to cover. Bodies lay in the streets. People Lynn had known her entire life. Mrs. Rodriguez, who ran the bakery. Young Tommy Chin, who wanted to be a pilot. All dead. All silent. The communications array was a simple building, mostly underground, connected to a powerful transmitter that could send signals across vast distances. It was designed for updates to Earth, routine reports, nothing urgent. Lynn had maintained this equipment for years. She knew every wire, every circuit. She and Marcus reached the building's entrance. Behind them, the alien soldiers were gathering colonists into groups, forcing them to their knees. Lynn didn't have time to wonder why. She pulled open the door and they descended into the facility. The equipment was still running. Emergency power kept everything functional. Lynn sat at the main console and started preparing a transmission. Her hands moved automatically, muscle memory from 1,000 routine maintenance checks. "What are you sending?" Marcus asked, watching the door nervously. "Everything," Lynn said. "Attack coordinates, ship configurations, everything I saw. And a message." The building shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. The attackers were getting closer. Lynn typed faster, compiling data, attaching sensor readings from the orbital station's final moments. 42 light-years to Earth. The signal would take 42 years to arrive if she sent it through normal communication channels. But there was another way. The emergency beacon system. It used quantum-paired relay stations positioned between Nutera Prime and Earth, cutting transmission time to just weeks. The system had never been activated. It was only for absolute emergencies. This qualified. Lynn activated the beacon protocol. Warnings flashed on the screen. This type of transmission consumed enormous power. It would drain the entire colony's reserves. The system could only send once before burning out. "Do it," Marcus whispered. Lynn entered her message with shaking fingers. She kept it simple. Direct. Desperate. Earth. This is Nutera Prime. Colony designation NTP-7. We are under attack. Unknown hostile force. Orbital station destroyed. Thousands dead. Colony falling. They came without warning. No demands. No mercy. Attached data contains enemy ship configurations and attack patterns. We have no defenses. We cannot win. This is Engineer Lynn Merrick. Final transmission. They came from the dark. They are burning our world. Please. Please respond. Remember US. She attached all the sensor data, every piece of information that might help Earth understand what was happening. Then her finger hovered over the transmission button. Explosions sounded above them. Heavy footsteps on the stairs. The attackers had found them. "Lynn," Marcus said quietly. "I love you." "I love you too," she whispered. She pressed the button. The entire building hummed with power as the beacon system activated. Every light in the colony went dark as all remaining energy channeled into one final transmission. The message compressed, encoded, and launched into the quantum relay network at speeds normal communication could never achieve. The door exploded inward. Alien soldiers poured into the room, weapons raised. Lynn spun in her chair to face them, trying to appear brave even though she was terrified. The lead soldier was tall and covered in dark chitinous armor. Its face was insectoid with multiple eyes and clicking mandibles. It pointed a weapon at Lynn and said something in a harsh, clicking language she didn't understand. Lynn raised her hands slowly. Beside her, Marcus did the same. The alien noticed the console, saw the transmission indicator. Its mandibles clicked rapidly and it fired its weapon at the equipment. The console exploded in sparks and flames. But it was too late. The message was already gone, racing through the relay network toward Earth. The aliens grabbed Lynn and Marcus roughly, dragging them toward the stairs. As they emerged from the communications building, Lynn saw what had become of her home. Nutera Prime was burning. Every building, every field, everything she had ever known was either destroyed or burning. Hundreds of colonists knelt in groups, guarded by alien soldiers. The massive ships hung in the sky like dark gods. Lynn and Marcus were forced to join one of the groups. An alien officer, taller than the others and wearing different armor, walked among the prisoners. It spoke through a translation device in broken, mechanical human language. "You are now property of Zorith Dominion. You will work. You will obey. You will serve. Resistance means death. Your world is ours. Zorith." Lynn memorized the name. She looked up at the dark ships and whispered a prayer to God she didn't really believe in. A prayer that her message would reach Earth. That someone would know what happened here. That someone would come. The alien officer paused in front of Lynn. It looked at her with its multiple eyes, studying her. Then it moved on. Lynn sat in the dirt with her brother and the other survivors, watching her world burn. The communication array exploded as the aliens destroyed it completely, erasing the last piece of infrastructure that could send messages. But they were too late. Lin's transmission was already 6 million kilometers away, moving faster than anything could catch it. 6 weeks. That's how long it would take to reach Earth through the quantum relay system. 6 weeks until someone knew what happened. 6 weeks until someone might care. If anyone was listening. If Earth even still existed. Lin closed her eyes and tried not to cry. Around her, others wept openly. Children screamed for parents who would never answer. The night air smelled like burning plastic and death. Nutera Prime, the safest place in the galaxy, had fallen in a single night. 127 years of peace destroyed in hours. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, her message traveled on, carrying the last hope of a conquered world. The awakening. The message arrived at Earth Command at 0347 hours, Coordinated Universal Time. It came through the Quantum Relay Network, a system most people had forgotten existed. The signal triggered automatic alarms in a monitoring station buried beneath the Colorado Rockies, and within minutes, confused technicians were staring at data they couldn't believe. Emergency protocols activated. Calls went out across the solar system. By dawn, the United Earth Council was gathering in Geneva, their faces grim. Admiral Cale Traynor was tending his small garden in the Martian valleys when the military shuttle arrived. He was 63 years old, retired for 12 years, and had no intention of ever wearing a uniform again. He'd fought his wars. He'd lost enough friends. He was done. The young lieutenant who approached him looked nervous. Admiral Traynor, sir. Earth Command requires your immediate presence. Cale didn't look up from his tomato plants. I'm not an admiral anymore. Just Cale. And I'm not interested. Sir, there's been an attack. A colony. Thousands dead. Cale's hands stopped moving. He looked at the lieutenant properly for the first time. What colony? Nutera Prime, sir. 42 light-years from Sol. They sent a distress signal before they fell. Cale felt something cold settle in his chest. Nutera Prime. He'd reviewed their settlement application decades ago, back when he was still active duty. A farming colony. Families. No strategic value. No defenses. Nobody would ever bother them. Tell me everything, Cale said quietly. The lieutenant handed him a data tablet. Cale read Lin Marek's message. He watched the sensor footage of the Zorith ships. He saw the attack patterns, the orbital bombardment, the landing forces. Professional military assault. Overwhelming force against civilians who had no way to fight back. His jaw tightened. How many survivors? He asked. Unknown, sir. Communications were destroyed. But the colonist population was roughly 12,000. 12,000. Cale thought about the settlement applications, the families who had chosen isolation and peace. They trusted that distance would keep them safe. They'd been wrong. What does Earth Command want from me? Cale asked, though he already knew the answer. They want you to lead the response fleet, sir. If you're willing. Cale looked at his garden, at the peaceful Martian valley where he'd spent 12 quiet years. He'd promised himself he was done with war. Done with command. Done with sending people to die. But those colonists hadn't chosen war. War had come to them anyway. Give me 2 hours to pack, Cale said. Then take me to Geneva. The United Earth Council chambers were tense when Cale arrived. Politicians argued in heated voices while military officers stood silent at the walls. Cale walked to the center of the room and waited for them to notice him. Admiral Traynor, the council president said with obvious relief. Thank you for coming. I'm not an admiral, Cale said. Not yet. First, I need to understand what you want to do about Nutera Prime. A politician from the European Federation stood. We must consider our options carefully. These Zorith could be a significant threat. We should negotiate, find a diplomatic solution. They murdered 12,000 civilians, Cale interrupted. What exactly do you want to negotiate? We don't know the full situation. Perhaps there was a misunderstanding. There was no misunderstanding. Cale's voice was cold and hard. I've reviewed the attack data. This was a professional military operation. Orbital bombardment followed by ground assault and occupation. The Zorith came to conquer, not to talk. The politician sat down, looking uncomfortable. Another council member spoke up. Even if military action is necessary, we must consider whether we have the resources. We haven't fought a real war in over a century. Our fleet is mostly ceremonial. That's what we wanted everyone to think, said General Sarah Voss, head of Earth Strategic Defense Command. She stood and approached the display screen, bringing up images that made several council members gasp. Shipyards. Hundreds of them. Hidden in the asteroid belt, in the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, in the Kuiper Belt at the edge of the solar system. And ships. Vast warships in various stages of readiness, some fully operational, others in careful preservation. The Silent Fleet, General Voss said quietly. Maintained and upgraded for over a century. Hidden from everyone, including most of our own government. Built after the Mars Rebellion as insurance against external threats. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. Kale studied the images with professional interest. He'd known about some of these assets but not all. Earth had been busy during his retirement. How many ships? He asked. 417 combat vessels of various classes, General Voss replied. Plus support craft, logistics ships, and mobile repair stations. And the artificial intelligences that were developed to coordinate them. One council member looked horrified. AI warfare systems? Those are banned under the Santiago Accords. The Santiago Accords banned autonomous weapons on Earth, General Voss corrected. These systems are for external defense only, and they require human oversight. They've been sleeping, waiting for a crisis like this. Kale walked closer to the display, studying the ship configurations. Heavy cruisers with railgun batteries. Carrier vessels for fighter deployment. Missile frigates. Electronic warfare ships. A real war fleet, balanced and deadly. What's the flagship? He asked. Helios Prime, General Voss said, bringing up an image of an enormous vessel. Dreadnought class. Built in Jupiter orbit 30 years ago. Crew capacity of 3,000. Equipped with weapon systems that most of the galaxy doesn't know are possible. Kale stared at the ship. It was beautiful in a terrible way, all sharp angles and armored plating. Built not for exploration but for war. The council president stood. Admiral Traynor, if you accept reinstatement, you would have full command of whatever military response we authorize. But we need to vote on whether. Then vote, Kale interrupted. But understand what you're voting for. If we do this, we're not just rescuing one colony. We're announcing to the galaxy that humanity is not helpless. That we remember our people. That we will fight. This changes everything. The council members looked at each other nervously. They'd been comfortable with Earth's image as a peaceful, isolated civilization. This would shatter that image. The council president called for a vote. It took 20 minutes of debate. In the end, the authorization passed by a narrow margin. Kale was officially reinstated as Admiral of the Fleet, granted full operational authority and given one directive: save Nuterra Prime and neutralize the threat. How long to mobilize the fleet? Kale asked General Voss. The awakening sequence will take 72 hours. Recruitment another week. Full operational readiness in 14 days. Make it 10, Kale said. Every day we delay is another day those colonists suffer. General Voss nodded. I'll make it happen. The awakening of the Silent Fleet began immediately. Across the solar system, hidden facilities powered up. Ancient shipyards that had pretended to be abandoned suddenly blazed with light and activity. Ships that had floated in cold storage for decades began warming their reactors. On Europa, beneath the ice, submarines surfaced carrying crews to the orbital construction platforms. On Titan, massive drydocks opened, revealing cruisers that had been sealed in protective atmospheres. In the asteroid belt, entire rocks split apart to reveal concealed military installations. And the AIs woke up. The artificial intelligences that managed fleet coordination had been sleeping in quantum computers scattered throughout the solar system. Now they activated, their electronic minds analyzing the crisis, running tactical simulations, coordinating logistics. They were not sentient in the human sense, but they were brilliant within their design parameters. War planning, supply chains, optimal fleet formations. Kale established his command center aboard Helios Prime while the ship was still completing its activation sequence. Engineers worked around him, installing last-minute upgrades, testing weapon systems, training new crew members on equipment their instructors barely understood themselves. The recruitment was surprisingly easy. When word spread about Nuterra Prime, volunteers flooded the military offices. Many were older veterans like Kale answering one more call. Others were young idealists who wanted to prove that humanity protected its own. Some were relatives of colonists, desperate to help. Kale stood in the observation deck of Helios Prime 10 days later, watching the fleet assemble at Jupiter Station. Ship after ship emerged from concealment, taking formation. 400 vessels, each one a masterpiece of military engineering. Tens of thousands of personnel, all volunteers, all ready to fight. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen approached him. She was young, brilliant, and had been assigned as his tactical officer. Admiral, all ships report ready. We can launch on your order. Kale watched the fleet for a long moment. This was real now. No turning back. Send my message to all ships, he said. Fleet-wide broadcast. Yes, sir. Kale activated his communicator. Throughout the fleet, his face appeared on every screen, his voice reached every ear. This is Admiral Kale Trainer. Most of you don't know me. That's fine. What matters is that you know why we're here. 6 weeks ago, our people on Nutera Prime were attacked without warning. Thousands were killed. Thousands more were enslaved. They sent one message before they fell. A cry for help. A plea to be remembered. We heard them. We are the answer to that plea. We are not going to Nutera Prime just to rescue colonists. We are going to show the galaxy something they have forgotten. Humanity protects its own. We do not abandon our people. We do not ignore their suffering. And we do not forgive those who harm them. The journey will take 4 weeks at maximum fleet speed. Use that time to prepare. Train. Rest. Be ready. Because when we arrive, we are bringing thunder and justice. Trainer out. The broadcast ended. Throughout the fleet, crews prepared for departure. Engineers made final checks. Marines loaded equipment. Pilots calibrated fighters. Medical base stocked supplies. Kale turned to Commander Chin. Take us out. Set course for Nutera Prime. Maximum speed. Yes, sir. All ships, prepare for jump to faster than light. Countdown beginning. The fleet's drives activated in sequence, each ship charging its exotic matter drives. The technology was still imperfect, expensive, dangerous. But it could push ships to speeds that made interstellar travel possible in weeks rather than centuries. One by one, the ships vanished in flashes of distorted light, entering the quantum foam that allowed travel between stars. Helios Prime went last, Kale standing on the bridge as his ship tore a hole in normal space and dove through. The journey had begun. 4 weeks to Nutera Prime. 4 weeks until the Zorith Dominion learned that they had made a terrible mistake. 4 weeks until humanity reminded the galaxy why you don't attack the weak unless you're sure they're truly alone. Kale settled into his command chair and began studying everything known about the Zorith. Enemy force estimates, ship capabilities, cultural data from old exploration reports. He would learn everything possible about them. And then he would make them regret ever hearing the name Nutera Prime. Somewhere ahead in the darkness, Lynn Merrick and the other survivors waited, not knowing if their message had been received, not knowing if anyone was coming. But they were not forgotten. Earth remembered. And Earth was coming with fire and fury, thunder and justice. 6 weeks had passed since Nutera Prime fell. For Lynn Merrick and the other survivors, those weeks were a nightmare of forced labor, brutal punishment, and constant fear. The Zorith overseers were efficient and cruel, dividing the colonists into work groups, assigning them to harvest the very fields they had once owned. Lynn worked in the agricultural processing facility, sorting grain 18 hours a day under the watchful eyes of insectoid guards. Her hands were blistered and bleeding. She'd lost weight. At night, packed into crowded barracks with other prisoners, she tried to keep hope alive by telling herself that her message had reached Earth. But 42 light-years was a vast distance. Even through the quantum relay, her message had taken 6 weeks to arrive. And then what? How long would it take Earth to decide what to do? Would they even respond? Nutera Prime was just one small colony. Maybe Earth would consider it an acceptable loss. Marcus slept beside her on a thin mat. He'd been assigned to the water treatment facility. The guards had beaten him yesterday for working too slowly. His face was still swollen. "Do you think anyone's coming?" he whispered in the darkness. Lynn squeezed his hand. "Yes. I have to believe yes." Above them, in orbit, the Zorith maintained their occupation fleet. Commander Vraxis, the officer who led the invasion, was pleased with the conquest. Nutera Prime produced excellent agricultural yields, and the human slaves were learning to obey quickly. He'd sent reports back to the Dominion capital, boasting about his easy victory. The humans, Vraxis had written, are weak. They have no warriors, no weapons, no will to resist. They are perfect subjects for the Dominion. He had no idea how wrong he was. On the bridge of Helios Prime, Admiral Kale Trainer watched the tactical display as his fleet entered the Nutera Prime system. They traveled for 4 weeks through faster-than-light space, pushing the engines to their limits. Now they emerged at the system's edge, far enough from the planet to avoid immediate detection. "Status report," Kale ordered. Commander Chen worked her console. All 417 ships accounted for. No losses during transit. Stealth systems active. Scanning for enemy positions. The sensor displays filled with data. The Zorith occupation fleet orbited Nutera Prime. 27 warships of various sizes, plus logistics vessels and ground support craft. A significant force, but nowhere near enough to face what humanity had brought. Enemy fleet composition? Gil asked. Identifying now, sir. Main vessels appear to be cruiser class, approximately 200 meters long. Weapons systems include plasma cannons and missile batteries. Shields appear to be standard electromagnetic types. No indication they've detected us yet. Kale studied the enemy positions with a tactician's eye. The Zorith had arranged themselves in a defensive orbital pattern, protecting their ground installations. Competent but predictable. They clearly didn't expect resistance. Do we have communications with the surface? Kale asked. Negative, sir. The Zorith destroyed all major communications infrastructure. We're picking up some short-range civilian transmissions, but they're heavily jammed. So the colonists were still alive, at least some of them. That was good. Kale had feared they might find only graves. Prepare the fleet for combat, Kale ordered. All ships to battle stations. I want fighter wings ready for immediate launch. And somebody get me an open channel to the Zorith flagship. Throughout the human fleet, crews rushed to their positions. Weapons systems powered up. Shields activated. Fighter pilots climbed into their craft. Marines checked equipment one final time. Every ship ready for what was coming. Commander Chin nodded. Channel open, sir. Broadcasting on all Zorith frequencies. Kale activated the communication system. His voice would reach every Zorith vessel, every ground installation, transmitted with enough power that they couldn't ignore it. Attention Zorith forces. This is Admiral Kale, trainer of the United Earth Fleet. You have attacked a human colony. You have killed our people. You have enslaved our citizens. This ends now. You have one opportunity to surrender. Power down your weapons, release all prisoners, and withdraw from this system immediately. You have 10 minutes to comply. If you refuse, we will destroy you. This is your only warning. The transmission ended. On the bridge, the crew was silent, waiting. Commander Chin watched her displays. Enemy fleet is powering weapons, sir. They're forming an attack formation. I think they're planning to, wait. Incoming transmission from the Zorith flagship. Put it through. The view screen activated, showing Commander Vraxis in his command chamber. The Zorith officer looked at Kale with what might have been amusement, his mandibles clicking in a pattern that the translation system struggled to interpret. I am Commander Vraxis of the glorious Zorith Dominion. You are one fleet. We are the Dominion, controlling 200 worlds. You cannot threaten us. Your people here are ours now. Leave or join them as slaves. Kale's expression didn't change. You had your chance. All ships engage the enemy. Show them what happens when you touch humanity's children. The battle began instantly. The human fleet surged forward, dropping stealth and accelerating to attack speed. The Zorith fleet, suddenly faced with 400 warships appearing from nowhere, scrambled to respond. The first human salvo was devastating. Railgun rounds, accelerated to impossible velocities, tore through Zorith shields like paper. Plasma torpedoes, running hotter than anything the Zorith had encountered, melted armor plating. Missile swarms, guided by AI targeting systems, found every weak point in enemy ships. A Zorith cruiser exploded in the first 30 seconds of combat. Then another. Then 3 more. They're trying to retreat. Commander Chin reported. Enemy ships breaking formation, attempting to jump to FTL. Don't let them leave, Kale ordered coldly. I want them to remember this. I want the Dominion to know the cost of attacking us. Human ships moved with coordinated precision that seemed almost psychic. They weren't just individual vessels but a single massive organism, each ship knowing exactly where to be, exactly when to fire. The AI coordination systems made the fleet operate at speeds and efficiencies biological crews couldn't match alone. The Zorith fought back desperately. Their plasma cannons scored hits, burning through some human shields, damaging armor. But for every hit they landed, the humans landed 20. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. Commander Vraxis watched in horror from his flagship as his fleet disintegrated around him. These humans weren't supposed to be warriors. The intelligence reports said they were weak, peaceful, isolated. Nobody mentioned that they had weapons like this. Nobody mentioned they had a fleet like this. His communication officer was shouting something about retreat, but Vraxis couldn't hear over the alarms. His ship shuddered as multiple human rounds penetrated the shields. The engines went offline. Weapons systems failed. Helios Prime appeared beside Vraxis's flagship, matching velocity. The dreadnought was enormous, dwarfing the Zorith vessel. Its weapons were aimed but not firing. Kale's voice came through the Zorith communication system again. Commander Vraxis. Your fleet is destroyed. Your ground forces are surrounded. Surrender now and you will be treated as prisoners of war. Refuse and I will crack your ship like an egg. Vraxis looked at his tactical display. 27 Zorith ships. 14 were destroyed, drifting wrecks. 9 were crippled and dead in space. 4 were trying desperately to flee. His flagship was disabled and helpless. The battle had lasted 8 minutes. We surrender, Vraxis said quietly, defeated. We surrender. On Nutera Prime's surface, Lynn Merrick was harvesting grain when the sky lit up with explosions. She dropped her tools and stared upward, seeing flashes of light in orbit. The Zorith guards were shouting in confusion, staring at their communication devices. Then the human dropships began landing. They came down in waves, sleek military craft painted with Earth's insignia. Marines in powered armor poured out, weapons ready. The Zorith guards tried to resist, raising their weapons, but they were overwhelmed in seconds. Stun rounds and precision fire dropped them without killing. Lynn stood frozen, not understanding what was happening. Other colonists were emerging from the buildings, confused and frightened. One of the human Marines removed her helmet, revealing a young woman's face. You're safe now, the Marine said with a gentle smile. We're from Earth. We're taking you home. Lynn's legs gave out. She collapsed to her knees, sobbing. Around her, other colonists were crying, hugging each other, unable to believe it was real. Marcus found Lynn and wrapped his arms around her, both of them shaking with relief. They came, Marcus whispered. They actually came. The human Marines moved through the colony efficiently, securing every facility, collecting every Zorith soldier. Medical teams followed immediately, treating the wounded colonists, providing food and water. Engineers began assessing the damage to infrastructure. Admiral Traynor landed in a command shuttle 2 hours after the battle ended. He walked through the battered colony, seeing the burned buildings, the makeshift prisons, the exhausted colonists. His expression was grim. Lynn was brought to meet him. She looked terrible, thin and exhausted, but her eyes were fierce and grateful. Engineer Lynn Merrick? Gil asked. Yes, sir. You sent the message that brought us here. That was very brave. Lynn shook her head. I didn't know if anyone would hear it. Didn't know if anyone would care. Kale's voice was firm. Humanity always hears. Humanity always cares. We protect our own no matter how far they are. That's not a promise. That's who we are. Over the next several days, the liberation continued. Every colonist was accounted for. Medical treatment was provided. Food and supplies were distributed. The Zorith prisoners were held in secure facilities, awaiting trial for war crimes. Commander Vraxis was brought before Admiral Traynor in chains. The Zorith officer looked diminished now, his arrogance gone. You will be tried by Earth's courts for murder, enslavement and crimes against sentient beings, Kale told him. You will spend the rest of your life in prison. But before that, I want you to take a message back to your dominion. What message? Vraxis asked quietly. Tell them that humanity is no longer isolated. Tell them we have weapons they cannot imagine and they will never want to see again. Tell them that we have a long memory. And tell them that if they ever attack another human colony, we will bring our entire fleet to their homeworld and burn it to ash. Do you understand? Vraxis nodded slowly, understanding completely. The message spread quickly through the galaxy. The Zorith Dominion, humiliated and shocked, withdrew from dozens of aggressive positions. Other empires that had considered humanity weak recalculated their assessments. Earth, the quiet world at the edge of nowhere, had announced itself as a power that could not be ignored. 6 months later, Nutera Prime was rebuilding. Earth had sent construction materials, additional colonists, and most importantly, a permanent defense garrison. The colony would never be unprotected again. Lynn Merrick stood in the same spot where she'd watched the sunset on the night of the invasion. The engineering depot had been rebuilt. The houses were new but familiar. Children played in the yards again. Mr. Chin had survived and he was back on his porch telling stories. But now, in orbit, human warships kept watch. And in the sky, Lynn could see the running lights of patrol craft making their rounds. Marcus came to stand beside her. Feels different now, he said. It is different, Lynn agreed. We're not alone anymore. Do you think they'll come back? The Zorith. Lynn looked at the warships in orbit and smiled slightly. No. I don't think they'll ever bother us again. High above, aboard the orbital defense station, Admiral Traynor prepared to leave. He'd stayed for months, ensuring the colony was secure, but now other crises demanded attention. Earth's awakening had created new responsibilities. Before he left, he recorded one final message. Not classified. Not military. Just a simple broadcast that would reach every human colony, every outpost, every ship traveling between the stars. This is Admiral Cale Traynor. To all humans living beyond Earth, you are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. No matter how far you are, no matter how isolated you feel, know that Earth remembers you. Know that we are watching. Know that if danger comes, we will answer. That is not a threat. That is a promise. We are one people, one family. And family protects family. Always. The message ended. Traynor's ship departed Nutera Prime, heading back toward Earth. But humanity's presence remained, permanent and protective. The galaxy had learned something important. You could attack humans. You could even win battles against them. But you couldn't make them forget their own. And you couldn't make them forgive. Humanity had awakened. And the stars would never be the same.